So today we're going to do a live review of the Jack Daniel's single barrel select here, and this is in particular barrel 230953 filled on October 13th, 2023, from Barrel House 308. So this is a Brown Forman product. Of course, this is a Tennessee whiskey, which also conforms to all the rules of bourbon. It is 47% ABV or 94 proof. It is chill filtered. It is charcoal filtered, I suppose. 80% corn, 8% rye, 12% malted barley. So of course they have that charcoal filtering process to be called Tennessee whiskey. So it's a little bit different. That being said, I don't ever really get a super huge charcoal note off of Jack Daniel's. The biggest note that always comes across to me off Jack Daniel's is like that kind of banana note, runts banana candy kind of thing. So we're going to let that sit for a minute. We'll see if we can find like a little tidbit in our mega book. Hey, look, there's the Cardew that you got. About JD, I can just spit out while that's resting. And of course, we're going to rate this out of 100, but my rating system tends to not conform to your typical like whiskey base 100-point system. So I'm going to give it 25 points for aroma, 25 points for palate, 25 points for finish, 10% for texture, or 10 points for texture, and 15 points for my overall experience. There's a couple pages here about Jack Daniel's. I don't know if there's anything like super wild. Or we could talk about Lincoln County process. We could talk about that for a minute. So, distilled to 140 proof, the new make then undergoes the Lincoln County process, where it is filtered through 10 feet of sugar maple charcoal, a process that takes about 24 hours and is practiced by almost all Tennessee whiskey makers. So, there is one or two Tennessee whiskey distilleries that were grandfathered in as Tennessee whiskey, despite not using the Lincoln County process. I can't remember which ones those are. What's that book? This is the Whiskey Opus. So, as much as this looks like, I got this for Christmas, if you can believe it or not, and this looks like some generic, crappy whiskey book you would buy someone you know is into whiskey, but you don't know what to get them. But strangely enough, it's actually kind of wild. It has like all kinds of like long form information about like every distillery you've ever heard of. So like, and it's all brand new images and everything. It's actually great. It's actually a great gift, yeah. So I don't know. We've been kind of like reading tidbits out of it, kind of while we rest in the Glen here. So I've actually been quite pleased with this. And usually it has something interesting to say, but 3 days a week, pallets of hard sugar maple are doused with new make spirit and set alight. They use new make to set these on fire. That's kind of wild. Once raked over and cooled, the charcoal is filled into vats for the charcoal mellowing process that the new make spirit undergoes before barreling. A distinctive step in making Tennessee whiskey, except for the few distilleries that are grandfathered, which is only a couple. And I don't know their names. I don't know if you know their names, but clearly they're not so notable that we would know the ones that are grandfathered in. There are some bourbons that refer to charcoal filtering, but it is not the same as Tennessee whiskey. Those whiskeys are filtered through charcoal after it has been cured in a cask. I don't know which bourbons are charcoal filtered after it comes out of the barrel. I don't even know if you're supposed to do that. For extra smoothness, Jack Daniel's Gentleman Jack undergoes the charcoal mellowing before maturation and after. Okay, so Gentleman Jack actually does go through it after. Interesting. Jack Daniel's has 2 cooperages and its own stave mill, so it is in complete control of its new charred oak barrels. That's not 100% true. Typically, they use a 13-minute toast, which helps to add color to the whiskey, followed by a 20 to 25-second equivalent to a level 3, level 4 char. Other than the recent age-stated versions, Jack Daniels is bottled when it's ready, rather than when it reaches a specific age, though the consistency of the process gives the master distiller a reasonable degree of predictability for each product. It's interesting that they say that Jack Daniels is in complete control of its new charred oak barrels. That's not 100% true. There are, for example, I think Glenmoe. Let me look at my Glenmoe notes real quick. But I'm pretty sure Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton leases barrels to Jack Daniels. Just so that we're like, we're being a bit pedantic, I suppose. But yeah, so it's kind of a weird. It's kind of we're being a bit picky with the wording. Yeah, they're 100% in control of their own new charred oak barrels, but Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton or you'd be known for them owning Glenmorangie Scotch or Ardbeg, for example. They own a forest in Missouri where they pick their own trees to make barrels with. They own the barrel. They lease it to Jack Daniels and Heaven Hill to age bourbon in. Then they take the barrel back so that they have high quality barrels for their Scotch. So technically, they wouldn't have control over the barrels that are leased to them by Glenmorangie, but I don't know what percentage of that is. It's probably maybe not that high. Obviously, Jack Daniels makes a shit ton of whiskey, so. Either way, we'll get into this. Now it's sat for a minute. It's surprisingly not as banana as I remember. It's a little bit banana. A little bit banana. I'm getting a little bit of cherry off this too. Also like a cocoa powder kind of note. Yeah, like almost like if you have Runts candy, the little candy, hard candies, like the banana and the cherry out of that. A little bit of oakiness. That like cocoa note's pretty low down the totem pole though. And again, we're talking about a single barrel product, so Jack Daniel's product's probably pretty consistent even in the single barrel realm. But technically this is for this specific barrel, so this will have some variation in comparison to other single barrels. Again, this one was filled last year, so it's been sitting for a minute. Not super duper sweet, other than like the innate sweetnesses that are coming with some of those other notes. There's kind of a dusty note, but it's not like a dusty corn. It's kind of just like an ambient dust note. Almost like the oak note is dusty. But overall, quite a bit fruity actually. A little bit of spice character, a little bit of like a dusty oak character. Not super like spicy in any way. There's a little bit of that butter. All right. And again, this is natural color because Tennessee whiskey, like bourbon, cannot have E150 colorant added. So this is the natural color of the barrel diluted to 47% alcohol. Cheers. Tastes like Jack Daniels. As it should, I suppose. Right on the arrival, on the attack, you get some of that like ripe banana note. Held long on the tongue, you do get some of that oakiness starts to come through. A little bit of spiciness. And on the finish, a little bit of spice still, a little oaky, a little bit of that like buttery note. That like kind of whisper of banana, oak, and spice are lingering. A little bit, drinks a little bit hotter than I would expect. Like there's actually some warmth on the finish that I don't typically get at this proof. So this one's drinking a little bit on the hot side. Finish is right on the outset. We'll say like medium length. We're gonna give it again. We try to give stuff some time to develop, and we probably won't give any sort of numbers until like the third sip. But despite it being like a little warming, there's nothing prickly. There's no spiky flavors. There's no unbalanced notes. It's quite smooth on the palate. There's no like harsh, complex characters, not complex characters, harsh, spiky characters that are like making it challenging. But there is a little bit more warmth there than I would have expected. Let me turn this music down a little bit. It's a little too loud. We'll give it some time. For me personally, some of these sweeter characteristics tend to appear kind of like later in the resting process. So I'll give it some time for that brown sugar kind of like aspect to kind of like present or not. Yeah, I'm actually surprised at how like very cherry the nose is on this. It's like more cherry than it is banana. But the banana's in there. There's definitely a butteriness. We'll say like that butteriness and like a growing sweetness we'll call like a butterscotch. That being said, the rest of the aroma is not super duper present. I'm mostly getting like a strong cherry, whisper of banana, some butteriness with some sweetness, maybe butterscotch, dusty oak note in the back. But that's like it. Not finding like much else there. Maybe way buried in there, there's like kind of more of a corn grain sort of note. But it's like way in there at the back at best. Cheers. Some more spiciness on the palate now. But again, it's similar. You get in with that right off the rip. Some of that banana flavor kind of grows into some oakiness, some spiciness. And into the finish, it's kind of like you get a little bit of a spice hit, you get some oak, and that like slight banana rides out. Nothing terribly too complex going on. The nose is kind of more interesting than what's going on with the palate. Um, that being said, like there's some amount to be said for the fact that um, humans have more olfactory receptors than we do taste receptors. So um, there's something there for that fact. There's not kind of any kind of wild transitions or kind of like interesting non-bourbon characteristics going on here. Probably the fact that there's so much kind of light candied banana going on is maybe the most interesting thing, but that's characteristic of Jack Daniels in my experience. The rest is sort of bourbon-like. It's still quite smooth. Um, something something Tennessee whiskey. All right, so we'll give it one more sip here, and then we'll start thinking about how we would score this. Yeah, so cherry on the nose. It's quite pleasant, actually. Like the Blantons that we have on a little bit of rest becomes this like vanilla bomb, and this is like in the same way, kind of like a cherry bomb, but only on the aroma though. That cherry is like not there on the palate. Texture is not the thickest on the mouth. This would probably be like a lot more flavorful at barrel proof, which would make sense, but this particular offering feels a little bit on the thin side. Doesn't coat super duper well. It's not particularly oily. All right, so at a 25, how would we rate the aroma here? It's a good cherry note, some dusty wood, some spice in there. That runts banana is still in there. That sweetness is having a hard time getting through the cherry for me. Um, there is a slight butteriness, and it's a little sweet. It's hard to call it butterscotch though, because it's not quite that degree of sweetness. Um, is almost just all in that candied cherry, candied banana realm. Um, we'll call this 15 out of 25. It's good. It's a good aroma. All right. I'll focus on the palate. Um, see if we can kind of extract more than kind of like light banana, oaky, spicy thing. Yeah, you get some of that sweet banana note right at first, held in the mouth. You kind of get to that oakiness and that growing spice character. Not much else going on. Um, I think 14 is fair. It's good. 14 out of 25. Um, Now we'll talk about the finish. It's not terribly long, in the medium length realm. Um, this is starting to feel, I'm really thinking about it, very middle of the road. It's kind of like maybe slightly above your like bargain tier bourbon kind of quality, but it's not blowing me away. Not like a cask strength offering might, which probably makes a lot of sense. That's kind of like right where the price is anyway. Kind of medium on the finish. Um, Again, a little bit spice, a little bit oak, some sweet banana and wood kind of ride out. Honestly, there's a bit of like something I would call charcoal on the finish. A little bit of a char note in the finish there. A little bit more of something. Um, but I think we'll still call this like 60, 16, 16 out of 25. It's good. It's kind of an all-rounder. Now, if we focus on the texture, for me, the texture is a little bit on the thin side for this particular dram. It's not super oily. I kind of have to like force it around my mouth a little bit. It's not super viscous. Doesn't have kind of a super smooth mouthfeel or anything. Pretty typical, but a little bit on the thin side. Um, I have to kind of decide if it's like a low grade smooth or like a thin. Make sure this is pretty clear here. Yeah, unfortunately, that's like, to me, it's like a 3 out of 10. It's pretty thin on the palate in terms of its texture. Not necessarily its flavor impact, but just its texture. So my overall experience out of 15, um, man, this is as run of the mill. Honestly, except for like the like um except for like the very cherry aroma, this is like as most run of the mill I think as you can get. Um it's got like it's not that much in the sweet realm. The sweetness kind of wraps into like the fruity kind of notes. The kind of like bit of banana, bit of cherry. Um it's pretty well balanced. Doesn't present any kind of like spikes or challenges in any way. Um, but the flavors are about medium of intensity and about medium of complexity. Um, Hype up the single barrel, but never been blown away by it. It might be different if it was a single barrel proof, but the single barrel select, in my experience with this particular bottle, is as mid range as it comes. Um, I don't. I don't know that I would put it over any other kind of mid-range sort of bourbon offering. Put it right beside like your Elijah Craig small batch, um, or, like any other kind of like, like even like your Larceny small batch or any of those like roughly mid 90s proof bourbons. It kind of feels like it's right at home there. Better than Old Number 7, absolutely. So head and shoulders above your Old Number 7, which is kind of like way too watered down, way too drinkable to provide enough character. But it's not doing anything wild or interesting. And it's a little bit of a premium price compared to like similar small batch bourbons. Of course, it's Tennessee whiskey. Let's be clear, it's not bourbon exactly, but it's bourbon. So, at a 15 for me, um, this particular bottle is not quite forgettable. It had a very cherry note, but it doesn't do much to separate itself from other beverages in the same world here. So we'll give it a 5 out of 15, which is maybe even a little generous, which is a distinct rating for me. It's not forgettable just because it had that like cherry essence. It's not a forgettable bottle, but I can't see myself wanting to reach for this over anything else for any particular reason, other than maybe the fact that it's got a cherry note that's pretty loud to it. Um, so when we add these together, I still haven't done graphics for my reviews yet. Don't worry. I know that you would like to see numbers on the screen. I will get there eventually. 15 and 14 and 16 and 3 and 5 is 53. 53 out of 100, which we call good. It's good. It's on kind of on the low end of good. This is a good whiskey. It's good.